Welcome to Business Talk, your go-to source for insights into the evolving business landscape in Africa and beyond, right here on businesstech.co.za. As always, it's great to be here, your host, Michael Avery, and today we're diving into a topic that I think really resonates with every business leader and employee alike, the transformation of work from a place to an activity. And in this episode, we're joined by two distinguished guests, Rajat Bhargava, who is the CEO and co-founder of JumpCloud, and Gregory MacLennan, the CEO of Digicloud Africa, both leaders at the forefront of enabling businesses to adopt flexible, remote, and hybrid work models, not just locally, but globally. And they're doing this in collaboration with Google Cloud, really committed to making this flexible work philosophy that we've embraced since COVID a reality. So, chaps, it's great to have you on the show. Raj, maybe you could just kick us off. Can you give us an overview of JumpCloud? You're something of a serial entrepreneur. What are the core problems that JumpCloud sought to solve for businesses transitioning to remote work models?
Absolutely. Thanks. It's great to be here, Michael. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So just to give you a little background on JumpCloud. So we've been around about 10 years, and we are a market leader in the identity and device management space. And the idea for us is to enable organizations to connect their workers to the technology that they need to access to get work done. So we feel like we are a foundational solution in order to make work happen, if you will, in any organization, whether that's in an office, remote, hybrid, with any type of technology. So whether that's, Google, Microsoft, AWS, Mac, Windows, Linux, doesn't matter what the type of technology is. We want to enable those companies and those organizations to make that successful within their organization.
And that's key, because I think the problem often with technology stacks is one feels isolated, one doesn't feel one has flexibility, one feels locked in. And so you're looking for a solution that gives you that kind of flexibility. We had dinner recently, and it was just incredible hearing some of your client base, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, for example, which are doing amazing purpose-led work. And this is the technology that underpins all of that. What led you into expanding into Africa? And how do you see your solutions fitting into the unique business landscape here in South Africa?
Well, Africa is booming. It is a very, very interesting market. It is ripe for, access to technology and to be able to transform their environments, their organizations, their work that they're doing. And so, people over the last 10 years have been downloading our product, using it all across the world. We've been in 160 countries, and we do have some amazing customers in Africa, in South Africa in particular, as well as, many other countries within the African continent. And it is really that access to technology, whatever that technology an organization may want to use, that JumpCloud enables, right? So that's kind of the core value proposition that we offer.
Greg, Digicloud, I think quite well known in the South African market, but for those who've been living under a rock, can you just describe what Digicloud does and how it supports businesses across Africa as well?
So Digicloud is started out as Google Cloud only, but now very much sort of cloud services, reseller enablement partners. What we do is we make it as easy as possible for tech businesses that want to be able to service companies in Africa, all across Africa, not just South Africa, with technological solutions in the cloud. And we help them, we enable them. Where we fit in with JumpCloud is in any sort of hybrid cloud or multi-cloud strategy. You need the ability to work across this in a unified way. JumpCloud is the most perfect product we found to do that. And that's where we sort of position that for African businesses.
And when we talk about this, you are eating your own cooking, because Digicloud has adopted 100% remote work policy. What have you seen in terms of benefits or even hurdles of this approach in the African context? We're debating it last night. What is the ideal model? Is it going to be 100% remote? Is it going to be hybrid? Every context, every business is slightly different. What has your experience been, Greg?
And you're 100% right. As we were discussing last night, in a very robust discussion, actually, around, whether businesses should go all in, come back, or hybrid or remote. So Digicloud is 100% remote. It's 100% remote because of the type of business we are. I mean, the tools we use enable it 100%. One of the questions you raised last night, which I think is a pertinent question, is like, how do you get the culture right? And I think for every business, it's different. But something that we've seen is, the people within the tech space, you have an opportunity to give those individuals some autonomy, some authority to really do things, create stuff, innovate. If you think about, the Google of 10 years ago, everything was new and innovative, but that's all with autonomy. And so if you were to ask me, in my space, in my business, 100% remote works very well. And it's a huge lure for top technical talent. If you give them, sort of introverted coders who want to just build amazing stuff by themselves at home, this is the right way to do it. It's not fit for purpose for every business. We know that, but it does enable us to work across 46 countries and not have a human in every single country to be able to do that. And that's where we see the scale.
Raj, it's very interesting reading through your book, because you've also published a book called The Starter Playbook, and thank you for signing it as well, sitting on the bookshelf here at home. But, you've got experience in building and scaling, and also, having failed and where the scars in all of that as well. What are the kind of key principles from your book that you're now applying at JumpCloud to navigate the challenges, some of them that Greg alluded to, of hybrid work environments and things like building culture and ensuring that you have the right fit for whatever business model you implementing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're also a remote first culture. We're in about 20 countries, nearly 1,000 people globally. So it is a very complex business to run. And also when you think about the dynamics of all these different cultures and locations, I think some of the principles that we talk about in the book are very important to think about for any organization. It doesn't matter size, doesn't matter whether you're in office, remote, hybrid. It is things like culture. We just talked about that. It is alignment. It is clarity. It is communication. It is all those things that, are frankly the basics that we all talk about, but we often don't get them right because they're hard. It's hard to communicate. And it's hard to make sure there's alignment across so many people in so many different countries, working so many different time zones. So, I think technologies like the cloud enable that. Technologies like JumpCloud enable that. Organizations like Digicloud Africa enable that for organizations to be able to take advantage of the cloud, take advantage of technology in order to make their organizations run better, in order to take advantage of this new thing that is pretty amazing called remote and hybrid work, right? It's fascinating over the last, 4 years, since COVID started, and, how organizations have really transformed, and ours definitely transformed in that period of time. And we are absolutely leveraging sort of the new model of remote work, I think very effectively.
Do you think you would have been able to expand as rapidly and as broadly and successfully as you have? I mean, without this kind of remote work model. And, that's what fascinates me, because it almost now opens up a global marketplace for businesses such as yours that can scale.
I don't think so. I think, remote work really does enable quite a bit. The whole concept of, how we got to remote work was fascinating, right? I mean, we were in office in the US, very much a in-person culture prior to COVID, but COVID changed everything. And we changed with that. So we became a remote first culture through COVID, but we changed all the systems, all the processes, all the communication, the cadences, everything that we did, we had to change because we knew it would be different. And then once we were able to make remote work, successful within the US, we said, why can't that work outside the US? And we have about 45% of our customer base is outside the US. We want to be closer to our customer. We want to make sure that we are servicing and supporting and making our customers successful wherever they may be. So we started putting lots of people outside of the US closer to our customers, making sure that we understood them, understood their local economy, their geographies, their cultures, all the aspects that they were dealing with. We wanted to learn about.
And also why your partnership with Google, I think, is so interesting. How does that enhance your capabilities at JumpCloud? What are the synergies that are created through this collaboration with Google?
Well, I think Google Workspace in particular and Google Cloud, GCP, they're top-notch solutions. And number one, Google Workspace, I think, is a fantastic solution that enabled remote work, hybrid work. It enables people to work from all over the globe. It's fantastic for collaboration, for productivity, and it works in the cloud. It can work from wherever you are. It can work from, your home office. It can work from the beach. It can work from when you're traveling for work. It doesn't matter. And I think that sort of fundamental change of being able to work from anywhere, I think Google and Google Workspace in particular really enabled. I think they were a catalyst for making this remote work process happen. And then, of course, you've got the incredible Google Cloud capabilities, which allow you to not have your own infrastructures. You don't have to have a data center. You don't have to have your own offices. You can work from many, many different locations. And then we could even get into really nuanced conversations around data sovereignty, security, all of these things that are very topical these days that Google Cloud enables as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Greg, I mean, we were talking about changing the mindset, I think, and you mentioned culture internally inside an organization, but changing the mindset and the approach now from being locked into an ecosystem, and often it's in Africa, it's kind of a Microsoft ecosystem, to now say, you don't have to be locked into an ecosystem anymore. How do you go about explaining the benefits of this technology, which I think is still quite nascent in the South African market, to the chief information officer and the chief technology officer inside an organization?
Very topical indeed, Michael. I think when COVID happened, businesses were forced into the cloud in one respect or another. So we were all forced remote, we were all forced into the cloud, and that was a global phenomenon that accelerated cloud adoption. And many larger organizations, had their vendor of choice. You mentioned one, there are others, and then they went all in on that. And then commits were signed and things were done and migrations were done, and great pain happened. And each hyperscaler does certain things really well. So they all do similar stuff. But if I talk about Google, if you're going to do data and analytics, there's no one better than Google. And that's what we talk about as like best of breed. So what does an organization in Africa in 2024 look like? Chances are they've got something in the cloud, whether you're a bank or whether you're a little startup that's, doing another e-commerce or fintech or whatever the story is. You've got something in the cloud. But where you want to be is you want to be able to differentiate between clouds so that, should someone fall over, you have the ability to run it elsewhere. But more importantly, you want to be using the best of breed. And to your point, I don't want to be stuck with a vendor because now everything has locked me in and I'm stuck there, and the directory service determines where and what I'm going to do, and the databases determine what I'm going to use for the next forever and ever. Amen. I want to be able to use best of breed. If the right database, and I want to be able to run it wherever I want to run it, and I want to be able to use the services I want to run, my CTO is sitting in a position where he wants or she wants to use the best tech for whatever that is. And I mean, we're talking about hyperscalers, but even if you look at you in your ERP, like your warehouse management system might not be the same vendor as the ERP for a best of breed. They want to be able to do that. Now your CIO is saying, yeah, but guys, risk. How do we make sure that we create the security across all these different systems? How do we make it consistent? How do we have one identity? How do we make sure that we're able to onboard people and then offboard them when they leave? All of these questions that are keeping a CIO up at night, because he's the guy who goes to jail when there's a data breach, versus the CTO who is desperate to not be tied to a single vendor and actually be able to do the right thing at the right price, but more with the right level of innovation and with the correct tools. He doesn't want to have a cap on what he can do with the tool. So I get quite passionate about this.
No, and I think rightly so, because I think security, and I wonder how many companies actually realize when they've offboarded someone, whether or not that employee still has access to key systems, is still on a WhatsApp channel or a Slack channel or whatever it is. And Rose, to bring you in on that point, it's a major concern with remote work. I think it's probably the number one issue. When I chat to CEOs about their remote work policies, they will say, yes, Michael, but security, how do we manage this when there are different devices, different access points remotely? I mean, it just kind of makes people's heads spin a little bit. How does your platform address the security concerns, and what are some of the common, shall we call them, security misconceptions that you encounter?
Yeah, absolutely. So the good part about our platform is that we control security. We control that endpoint, if you will, whether that's a Mac, Windows, Linux device, iOS, Android device. We control the security configuration of that device remotely. So we give CIOs or IT organizations full control over making sure that that device matches their security policies and always will match those security policies. That's incredibly important. But by the way, there's not just a security problem here. You have remote work, you have people in the field. They also need to be productive. Technology breaks every once in a while, or people need different types of technology. They may need a new application that gets delivered to their platform. Well, how do you make all that happen remotely? And how do you make that happen securely and safely? And then, of course, you have that end user, and you want to make sure that end user is accessing whatever they need to access, whether it's in the cloud, whether it's on-prem on their device, whether it's in a VPN environment that you've created. Doesn't really matter. You want to make sure that that happens safely, securely, and frankly, as easily as possible. We're all excited about technology. We love technology, but not everybody there in an organization is there to get excited about technology. Most of them are there to get their work done. So if we can make that work easier, faster, safer, that's when we're successful.
Yeah, it's the single sign-on Holy Grail. You just want one access point, one password, one username. You don't have to log into 5-6 different systems every time you're trying to access a different stack or component of your daily work. When it comes to onboarding and integration, Greg, maybe you can just take me through how Digicloud manages that whole process for new clients, just to ensure that there's a smooth transition to remote operations.
And I think, what you're saying is alluding to a technical solution, but which is obviously something that Digicloud will assist with through our resellers. But probably more importantly is the change management component that many organizations possibly don't think about. And I mean, Roger's spoken about it. You've got these workers who, now are going to be remote. You might not actually have a touch point with them. They receive a device, a laptop, a phone, a combination thereof. And now they need to work. They need to onboard. They need to, what's happening? And I think, with a solution like JumpCloud specifically, they can open, they can log in, and everything will be delivered. They'll be able to continue to work. As opposed to the problem you've just said now, which is, imagine you have to open it, you're brand new at the company, you might not have experience with the ERP, the CRM, and every other 3-letter acronym system you can think of, and now you need to get your job done. And now you need to log in, and you've got 5 different passwords, 5 different accounts. You don't know where to find the stuff. Maybe not all of it is web-based, maybe it's, et cetera, et cetera. So when we talk about this, one of the factors that is a limiting factor on organizations when they're thinking of multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, or even multi-system, because it's broader than that, is exactly that. Like, how does someone interface with that in the easiest way possible so that the change management component, that transformative effect, is as simple as possible? Because the single biggest thing I found, not so much in 2024, but like if you go back to sort of pre-COVID and that, when you give someone the option to use something new and different, the very first thing they think about is, like, how are my people going to be able to use this? And what do I need to do to now train? It could be 10 people, it could be 10,000 people to use a new system. And are we talking about a 2-month exercise? Are we talking about a 2-year exercise? And that normally stops it before, well, actually, this is the technology we need, because of the potential for change management. Something Digicloud does really well is that change management transformative effect that businesses don't always look at. And that's also, sorry, I'm rambling here, but what also speaks to is that's why people stay within an ecosystem. They think once you're in an ecosystem, that's it. You never have to worry about the change management aspect. But that's not good for your business to continue to innovate, to grow, to be as productive as possible in 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, I
think organizations.
Right.
Sorry, I was going to jump in, Michael. I think organizations fundamentally want to find the best technology for their team, for their people, for their purpose of mission of their business, right? So ultimately, how can we enable them to find and utilize and be successful with that technology? That is the core fundamental problem that I think, Gregory and I are trying to solve for organizations here in Africa. And ultimately, I'll give you one edit to your Holy Grail comment of, SSO, and we can log in and get to everything. And you said one password. And our hope is it's actually not one password. It's just your identity. You come in biometrically, and you don't have to have that sort of change management with passwords and understanding where you go, what portals you go to, all kinds of things like that. Hopefully we can make it super, super easy and super safe, where you're just logging into your machine with biometrics, and that's just enabling you to get to all of your applications, all your files, all your networks, all your cloud infrastructure, whatever it may be. That, I think, is truly the Holy Grail, where you don't have this level of effort for end users.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was chatting to Paul Morley at Nedbank, and he was speaking to exactly that point, right? And the point that Greg made about change management being fundamental. I think he cited a stat from Gartner that something like 87% of big data projects fail. And they fail primarily because we don't pay enough attention on the change management aspects, because it's driven from the top by someone who's excited by technology because they can see the value that it can bring. But to your earlier point, Raj, not everyone is coming in today because they're excited about technology. They have a job to do. And so you've got to manage that. Just as a last thought, and while I've got two thought leaders in the room, be remiss not to ask you, how do you see the future in the next 5 years? Maybe, Greg, you can kick us off because you're in this trench warfare in supporting remote and hybrid work models. How do you envision the future of workplaces evolving in the next 5 years? What is it going to look like?
It's almost ironic you said warfare in the trenches, because in 2024 we're in a world economy that has several conflicts, and that has implications for many things across regions. So I think in the next 5 years that's going to play out bigger and bigger, and because of that, the ability to be able to be remote, successfully remote, is going to become more and more important. If I look at what happened when Russia effectively shut down and American companies and the likes had to pull out, like customers still needed to be serviced who had operations in Russia or in Ukraine or whatever the story is. And based on the news that's coming out now, is it getting any better? We don't know. That said, what do I see for the next 5 years? I think we're going to go through a period of, organizations seeing value in hybrid, seeing value in go back full time. And then depending on your type of business, our business being technological, it's going to drive what makes sense for your business more than potentially the discussion around remote versus hybrid or whatnot. What I think is going to be a bigger driver is I am seeing in our market and in Africa more and more businesses within the sort of wartime economy trying to just make sure that their business is robust. It's not so much about innovation anymore. It's now about how do I have the most robust organization that will be here in 5 years and will continue to grow and thrive. And that means I need the best tool at the best price that works in Africa. It has to be fit for purpose for Africa. And I think, if we're looking at sort of the next 5 years, the wheat is going to be separated from the chaff in terms of we're going to be using the best tool for fit for purpose in Africa. It's no longer people going to be like, guys, I'm tied to a vendor. I'm going to just use whatever they throw at me. We can't. We have to be able to innovate in terms of cost and best, fit for purpose products. And I think that's going to force people to diversify. That's what I see in the next 5 years.
Very interesting. Raj, how do you see it playing out?
Well, I think the world has fundamentally changed. I think COVID made the world in a lot of ways become a lot smaller. So I think there's tremendous innovation going on every corner of the world. We're in 160 countries. There are very, very interesting companies doing incredibly innovative things all across the world. It is no longer, the domain of, the wealthy countries in the world. It is now every country has an opportunity to go drive innovation for their organization, their country, their people. And I think that's going to be the biggest fundamental change. We're not going to be, 200 individual economies. It's going to be much more of, one global economy where there's going to be much more movement of talent. There's going to be much more movement of innovation. There's going to be much more movement of education, of learning, of, frankly, of money, commerce. So that's what I see. I think the world has shrunk incredibly in the last 4 years in a way that I don't know if we probably ever envisioned. And I think it is amazing. Yeah. I think it's incredibly amazing.
Yeah, I love that view. It's a very exciting view, and it pushes back against what we've seen is kind of a rising tide of mostly populist politicians pushing back against globalization. And we were chatting about it at dinner, this kind of zero-sum thinking. And, what you're painting is a future that isn't about zero-sum thinking. It's about kind of a more shared prosperity as the world becomes so much smaller thanks to technology. Well, thank you both, Raj and Gregory, for sharing fantastic insights and your experience with us today. It's really clear that I think the way we think about work has fundamentally changed, and the tools and the philosophies that you've discussed are really playing a pivotal role in that transformation. So thanks so much for your time.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Michael.
having me, Michael. Appreciate it.